Thank you guys for having the patience. So we have Sanjeev Katpalia here. So let me give you a short background about Sanjeev. Sanjeev has an industry experience of around 25 years in the hardcore manufacturing. He's a consultant, advisor, and a mentor renowned for his expertise in strategy, technology, and economics. He has led various teams through significant crises and has a diverse background in business restructurings, digital transformations. He continues to advise and mentor startups, bringing innovative solutions to the market. Joining him would be Nishant. He's the co-founder of and CTO of DesignX. Nishant again has 8 years of experience with Hero Motorcorp, which is one of the biggest company in India. He's a production guy with a tech experience. Let me now turn it to Sanjeev. You can get things going. I think it's 7:30.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vata, for that very generous introduction and a very warm welcome to all the participants from various parts of the world in different time zones. So, whatever it be, may you have a good day and a good evening. And let me just start with sharing my screen. So we decided to have this webinar on Gen AI, very focused on manufacturing, factories specifically, for a good reason. There is a lot of activity going on around these digital technologies, but there is not that much which is being progressed fast enough in the area of manufacturing, especially with respect to factories. Let me say that we have a sense of the profile that has joined us for the webinar. I think there are project managers, there are technical managers, there are consultants, basically people who are all focused on factories. And I think it would not be out of place for me to simply say that I have always been very passionate about factories and manufacturing. And, you need to walk the talk. So what happened was that long years ago, after I did my MBA and majored in finance and marketing, I just couldn't see myself with finance and sales and marketing roles. And I actually went back into manufacturing. So much so that the multinational company that I joined in India, which was the largest FMCG company, I dare say that I was the first MBA to join on the shop floor. With that came a lot of other insights, some of which I'll be able to share today. But let me move on here to talk about what are we going to be focusing on. We are totally focused on the factory, and we are totally focused on Gen AI and its use in the factory environment. Now, people are familiar with AI. They have been using parts and components of AI in factories, different kinds of factories, processes, batch lots, engineering, production facilities, and so on, asset-intensive factories. But before we get anywhere there, let's just start with a simple poll. Vata, can you please help with the poll?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a 40 to 50 seconds time. I'm starting with the poll. You can answer.
Yeah. I think most people would have done with it, but give it another few seconds.
Yeah. I think I'm going to end the poll and share the results
Okay,
now.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think all of you can see it, but let me just say it aloud. So 23% are aware of Gen I, 35% say that they have used Gen I, and 42% is I'm planning to use Gen I. I love this because this really indicates that we are at the beginning of a huge wave of technological change, which will have far-reaching impact on manufacturing. I'm closing this pop-up right now, but just remember that 42% are people who plan to use it in this audience. Now, one of the things that I love to say, and it is as much a fact, is that technology is a great equalizer. It doesn't care about seniority, it doesn't care about age, and that is what we want more of to come into the factories. Now, I know that many of us have gone through factories where seniority mattered so much more. Experience was so important in getting the right product, the right quality to keep the machines running. But that was, I suspect, several years ago, several decades ago. Increasingly, with technology entering the shop floor, younger people have been able to do as well, if not better sometimes. And talking of younger people, there was an interesting conversation I was having the other day, and somebody said Gen AI, and another person says, "Okay, so what is this? I've heard of Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. What is Gen AI?" And it really made me think. So, as most of you already know, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and there's even a Gen A now, believe it or not, they all relate to the time that people were born. It has to do with age. And the beauty of Gen AI is that it cuts across the ages. It doesn't care about age. So that, in a simple way, on a light way, is a story of Gen X, Y, Gen Z, moving on to Gen AI. One of the things about Gen AI that immediately came to my mind when we were having our discussions was that it finally makes it possible for factories around the world which are supposed to be producing the same products. Multinationals, global companies, they have factories in different countries. The raw materials are similar, the quality requirement is similar, but if you were to visit each of the factories, you will find the parameters being run, the processes, being tweaked. They all are in one way or another different from each other. Why do I say it with such confidence? Because I've been a party to it. Long years ago, I was in the edible oils and processing space. And I was working with this MNC that had a global footprint. It had close to 200 edible oil refineries around the world in different countries. Mostly they were processing the same kind of oils, rapeseed, soya bean, groundnut oil, and so on. They all wanted to refine it to the similar specifications. But everywhere, the capacity utilization was different, the yields were different, the production efficiencies were different, productivities were different. The kind of problems people used to have with so-called similar equipment were different. And that was when this multinational decided to launch a project called the Best Proven Practice. Now, this Best Proven Practice had a very noble objective of standardizing as much as possible the parameters, processing, production across the refineries globally. For the time when it was launched, it was really advanced thinking. Long story short, this project took about 10 years to be rolled out. And 5 years after it had been kind of fully rolled out, the oil refining business was sold. So that gives you a sense of where we were in my own lifetime and where we have the possibility to be today. I would like to, at this stage, move to a little bit about, where we are in manufacturing vis-a-vis the digital transformations, because this is a 10-year story, a 10-year project that I talked about, and what is going on now. So I've sort of deliberately used the word that manufacturing is playing catch up, simply because if you look at so many other sectors, whether it is retail, it is transport, it is logistics, they have been using technologies in such innovative ways. Look at what Amazon does. Look at what Uber has done. I mean, there are n number of examples without me getting into them. But manufacturing per se is a relatively more conservative industry. It has probably the longest history. It has, as far as we are concerned, it has almost never not been there. So by and large, we people on the factory shop floor tend to be a bit conservative. We make changes only when we are like sure that this will work. But with Gen AI, there is being introduced the possibility to fast track this entire change and really up our level in terms of the pace of digital transformations. Now, when I say pace of digital transformations, it covers the entire lot. I'm talking about innovation, I'm talking about efficiency, maintenance, collaboration. It doesn't really matter what the activity is, but all of them are going to be impacted by Gen AI in one way or another, and whether we like it or not. So it is best to flow with it. One of the big things that has happened is about the fact that factories specifically have worked with paper. I remember these logbooks, log sheets, and even now when I visit so many factories at different times, I still see some logbooks and some log sheets there. I've made this quite provocative by headlining it as "The Future Has a History." So we want to make everything predictable in the factories. Human beings are not predictable, but we want to make the factories and the machines predictable. We want to make processes predictable. And all of that is possible provided we have good use and we make good use of the history that we already have. And history, as you will soon realize, I'm talking about data. In the context of factories, history is largely about data and experience. So I think everybody can relate to these pictures. We know that we used to stack up these log sheets and log books and registers. And then one fine day, a clearing up had to be done, space had to be created, and off they went. And what was being destroyed was huge amounts of valuable data. And the other interesting thing about data is this. So in the factories, it was often my experience, and when I have conversations and exchange notes with younger people today, their experiences are not entirely different. So I have again made a very provocative statement here that the outdated practices are still practices in manufacturing. So I'm told by Vata that it's time for another poll. Shall we do that?
Yeah. I'll go ahead with the second poll, and again,
well, this is one of my most sort of interesting and a favorite poll of mine.
I think almost
Yeah, are we done?
Yeah, almost everyone has done. So I'll close the polling now.
Okay.
One second, other responses are coming in. One second. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
Yeah, the results.
Oh, I love this. This is very good. So at least we have some people who are really worried and concerned about the data quality security and about cost and resources. And a good number of people are really thinking as to all this is fine, but how do we integrate this? And integration is a challenge or has been a challenge until now. But all of the above, that's like the dominant thing. So seriously, all of these are real problems. So it's good to know that we got it right and that you are validating what we thought was likely to be the result of the poll. So thank you for that. And let me just quickly outline this. Most of you know it, but nevertheless, just to put it in words, it just takes a phone call, one phone call from a central office, a regional office, the CXO's place, a corporate office, and the whole shop floor army is then put to the task. Somebody will just ask, so what was it, what was this efficiency in that week last year, or what was it like last month, or some other thing which is not normally reported. And even if it is reported, it is lost. And then there's an army of people on the shop floor who are put to the task. The factory manager says, just get this done. I have to get back today, and so on. I think each one of us has probably experienced such moments. And that's what I meant, that outdated practices are still practices. But this has got to become history. So the biggest resource that we have created, especially in the last 8 years, I wouldn't even say 10, I'm being very specific, last 8 years, is data. Why do I say that? Just to keep data and matters relating to it in perspective, it took all of human history until the year 2016 to generate 1 zettabyte of data. And where probably some of us are thinking, how much is a zettabyte? While we may well know the definition, and even that I didn't know until recently, just to give you a sense of it, a zettabyte, for those of us who have holidayed on beaches, if you can imagine or think of all the grains of sand across all the beaches in the world today, that approximately is 1 zettabyte. And for the Gen Z people in the audience, amongst the participants, there's another way to put it. And that is, if you can imagine smartphones with a storage of 512 GB, you will need 2 billion of such smartphones to store 1 zettabyte. That gives you a sense of data and its magnitude. Now, in 2016, we succeeded, the entire humankind over its history succeeded in putting together 1 zettabyte. But look what happened after that. By 2020, just 4 years later, that one had become 64. So we had 64 zettabytes by 2020, just in 4 years. And that's growing exponentially. By 2025, it is projected that we will have 200 zettabytes of data. So 10 years ago, even if we had Gen AI, we didn't have the data. Even if we had the fastest AI stuff, we didn't have enough data. Today, we are inundated by data. We have so much data that we need much better processes to handle it, manage it, make sense of it, use it in a valuable and in a productive way. And that is where we enter the factory again with what they have. So there's a huge amount of data now available in the factories. Everybody is familiar with what I have on the screen, the ERPs, the MES, the SCADA, the paper. The fact is, and those with insights, even without insights, by now everybody knows, that these systems don't talk to each other. So they're all filled with data, but they're not talking to each other. They're not able to talk to each other. And one of the reasons for that is that they handle different aspects of the manufacturing activities. ERP, for example, is largely about materials coming in, whether it's raw materials, assets, whatever it is, and about stuff going out. I mean, mostly. There's some scheduling and so on, which often goes wrong, but that's what ERP does. MES, which is the execution system, is all about, booking the production, booking the losses, putting the efficiencies there, and so on. But it is not really linked to the ERP. And then, of course, we have SCADA. Now, SCADA is a word that is going around for a long, long time. But the fact is that not more than about 2 to maximum maybe 4% of manufacturing facilities have SCADA. They just don't. Because this is kind of limited to the larger processes, the larger operations, high asset intensity operations, and so on. And then we have paper, which is common to everybody. Everybody has lots and lots of paper. And these people are not talking to each other. So we have the raw material, but it is not usable. So here is what we are saying. Conventional management wisdom has always been break down the silos. Every system, every business, even every factory has silos, real and virtual. And when you break down silos, the experience has been that you just create other silos till they get discovered and people try to break them. In fact, there are certain things, certain specialized activities which are done quite efficiently within each silo. So the idea should be to allow those efficient activities within silos to continue, even as we connect the silos digitally and get the data to interact, and we derive more meaning by analyzing it in ways that were not easily possible so far. So very clearly the message is, don't break down the silos, connect them. And even more importantly, Gen AI requires connected silos. If you don't have connected silos and you think that you have 5 digitally independent silos and you're going to use Gen AI, no. Gen AI cannot be used. So that's a big learning for all of us, that for the first time, unlike the ERP, unlike the SCADA, unlike the MES, we actually have a technology that cannot work with independent silos. So we need to connect them. Now, how we will connect them, what it takes to connect them, that's a different subject. We will sort of touch upon it. But this is a significant takeaway that I want you to sort of think about. Okay, so I've come to a very interesting part in the webinar, which is really a demo. And I suspect that some of you are familiar with the theory of constraints. And the theory of constraints was first articulated in the best possible way in a book called The Goal. I think those of us who read The Goal almost made it a Bible. I did. And I really implemented it with great enthusiasm and spread the gospel on the shop floors that I operated in. Jonah is a character out of Goal, as some of you, if not all, will recognize. And look what is possible. I'm just giving you a glimpse of what is possible by deploying Gen AI on the vast amounts of data and in real time. So here we go. Just a minute. I was told that this will only work and you will be able to hear it when I remove my earpods. So let me remove my earpods. Otherwise, I'll be the only one listening to Jonah. Okay, here we go.
Let's see and ask Jonah that, hey, is there any breakdown today? That it can inform you about the breakdown that happened with the information, such as the duration of the breakdown, as well as time taken to fix the breakdown.
Now that was very short, only 15 seconds. It's possible that you might have missed a bit of it. I will replay this one.
Let's see and ask Jonah that, hey, is there any breakdown today? That it can inform you about the breakdown that happened with the information, such as the duration of the breakdown, as well as time taken to fix the breakdown.
So I think to many of us, this is like paradise. This sounds heavenly. I remember, every morning getting up, and the first thing that I did was to talk to the factory. What happened? Was there a breakdown? But look what Jonah is doing for us. And I will give you another demo. So here it goes. This one is long enough, and you've probably gotten used to Jonah. So let me play it only once.
Let's see if we try to ask Jonah that, hi, what is the report on the water consumption today? Here we can see that it tells us about the report on water consumption as well as indicates the required attention. We can even go to the next step and ask what can be the reason of this high water consumption today. And it can suggest the possible reasons which can be useful for the head cert.
Right. I hope you were able to also read what was written. It's a little small print, but you got the sense of it. Now, here is a summary of what Gen AI can and will do in stages, perhaps. I'm putting my AirPods back, makes it easier for me. Okay. So before starting on the summary, I thought I would touch on one other point, and which is that, while we gave the demo with Jonah, and you might be thinking, is this real? Can it actually get real? I wanted to share with you something that was shared with me very recently, and which is about the use of Gen AI in smart manufacturing in China. Now, there is a very interesting statistic about China. Some of you may already know that. But in the year 2024, 30% of all global production will happen in China. 30% of all global production will be in China. So what China is doing today, the world will do tomorrow. This is really how things are. And China is actually implementing Gen AI in manufacturing even as we speak. They have implemented it, they have rolled it out, they're already getting the advantages of it. And I am now beginning to read a little bit so that I get it totally right. The areas in which the Chinese factories, and these are largest factories who have rolled it out already, are deriving the advantages are in operational excellence. They are driving operational excellence to another level. They are using foundation models. Now, everybody knows everybody knows a little bit about large language models and foundation models. The beauty about these foundation models is that through Gen AI and the use of Gen AI, it is possible to create targeted smaller foundation models for your factory use. And they will do the job in a much more efficient way than a normal, regular, large foundation model. So they're using this to drive operational excellence, identifying inefficiencies, optimizing sort of production processes, and so on, improving quality, reducing waste, reducing downtime. They're also using it to accelerate product innovation. Product innovation, the guys who do product development, they and the factories never get along, well enough. What happens is that the factories don't want the systems to be disturbed. And here is a group of teams that are charged with something which is extremely important for their business, new product development, and they need to try it out in the factories. So Gen AI makes it possible, makes the simulations possible better. It makes the fine-tuning of the parameters better so that the time to commercial production is shortened dramatically. They are helping Gen AI, they're using Gen AI to help in faster upskilling of the workforce. They are using Gen AI for much faster rollout, much faster implementation of the best proven practices. You remember we started the session with best proven practices, and here it is. China is leading the way. Similarly, you have these Hire. Hire is a company which has done a lot of work in this. Everybody, I think, knows about Hire as people who make appliances, amongst other things. And there's a large automotive company which is already rolled out Gen AI in China. And there's a steel company which has rolled out. So it is across different manufacturing sectors that it is being done. So this is a real example. They're actually doing it. So it is no more a dream. It is no more in somebody's imagination. It is no more a conversation, in the stratosphere to be held in corporate offices. This is hardcore shop floor rollout of Gen AI that's happening. So here what I have put together is just a sort of summary so that, you go back with a more focused idea of what we talked about and what Gen AI will do. We talked about some of those things, not all of those things, but this is everything that Gen AI will do. We know about the digital twin technology. It will make it even more efficient. Innovation and product development I talked about. It is automating the tasks. Everybody knows that. Optimizing processes. Improved decision making. I cannot emphasize enough on the speed and the quality of the decision making that will change thanks to adoption of Gen AI. Customization for small batches. In fact, one of the things I would like to add here in innovation is that individually driven innovation in factories so far has not been possible because they didn't have access to the data. Now it'll become possible for individuals to have access to organized, structured data. And that would make individually driven innovation possibilities in factories. Manufacturing, I definitely believe, will catch up with the other sectors and hopefully cross them. And the availability of data, large amounts of less than zettabytes now, makes the transformational action possible with the new AI tools. So everything is kind of converging to make it happen. And I can definitely say this with full confidence that experimentation with Gen AI has begun, is gaining momentum. And as I shared with you, the story of China and some of its leading manufacturing facilities, it's actually gone commercial. So I think with that, I will hand this over to Nishan, who will talk about what all of us love to hear more about, which is connecting the shop floor to the top floor. Over to you, Nishan.
Yeah,
I will change the slides whenever you want me to.
Sure, Sanjeev. Thank you, Sanjeev, for this wonderful journey, and thank you for sharing all your experience, all your immense experiences that you have, across your life, and sharing those shop floor experiences also, that and talking about the length and breadth. And I must say that you have traveled the entire journey of progress in terms of manufacturing industry. So that's great to hear from you. All right. So now, extending to all the points that Sanjeev has made. So what I mean, from the polling point, like when we took the polls, almost everybody has said that all of the above problems are there, that connecting all the systems, and this is what Sanjeev has also talked about. Like there are silos of ERP systems, SCADA systems, MES system, and paper also. So this is where these are the typical silos of any manufacturing plant, and this is where the connectivity of shop floor and top floor breaks if these silos are not connected. So that is what it has to be. That is what it has to be done. But there has to be a unified approach while doing it. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Sanjeev, can you move to next slide, please? All right. Yeah. So this is where we have thought about the architecture, and this slide would probably answer all of your questions regarding all the connecting with all the systems, security part of it, and of course, the effort required to do that. So we have done a lot of effort, creating this architecture also. So first of all, what are the data sources when we talk about? So we have already talked about the SCADA, ERP, and MES systems, if they are in some digital format, the PLC system. But largely what we have seen, that a lot of processes are still being done on paper. What sort of processes when we talk about? Like safety audits. I mean, a plant runs on so many processes, like safety audits, quality audits, the processes like first piece inspection, in terms of quality, incoming quality inspection, outgoing quality inspection. So there are so many processes that we run, but all these processes are run on papers. Now, Sanjeev has talked at length and breadth about the problem of paper. I will extend those points, like there are no controls when you enter the data on paper. Then the data gets lost. It just gets lost. And let's say you want to look at the data which is just 1 month old, or let's say 6 month old. You have to like activate your entire army in the shop floor to gather that data and to make any sense out of that. So that becomes a huge problem, and that is why this entire data capturing system, and then making sense of it, has to be digitized, and from there it has to travel to the next layer, which we are talking about the security of it. So there are multiple parameters in securing this data in terms of firewall, standard authentication layer, then handshakes and other connectors. Then this data goes to the application where data massaging happens, encryption happens, different API and protocol calls happens, and overall cloud level security happens. After this massaging of data, this data goes to in the database layer, where again the database level, the data at rest encryption happens. We prepare data models, and then there are different protection layers which are applied. And now once we have this data, on top of this data we apply the LLM layer, which is more technical detail of any Gen AI modeling. So if you look at the last column, here we contextualize the data. I will give you a very small example how disconnected these systems can be. So let's say you have 3 systems: SCADA, ERP, and MES, and you have one machinery. What we have seen, I mean, you would be just amazed at it. What we have seen, that name of just one machinery is different in all these systems. And this becomes so funny. Like shop floor people call that machinery with a different name. The management people call that, I mean, in terms of ERP, they call that machinery with a different name. And then in SCADA, they have altogether a different name. That contextualization has to happen at some level. And that is where the unification happens. And this is where all the contextualization, all the data massaging is happening. And that is why this unification is really, really needed. And that's when your Gen AI system would be able to, predict and give you, like what the demo that Sanjeev has shown you. It will give you shortened, sweetened, actionable points in those scenarios. And that's where the real value will come up. All right, moving on, Sanjeev. Yeah. So once we, travel this entire length and breadth, what really happens? So imagine that typically, if I talk about ERP is the brain, where it really, makes sense of the market and, activates the shop floor to, produce something. And let's say MES and SCADA are the hearts. They keep pumping the production to happen. But what process digitization does, it becomes the nervous system. Like in our bodies also, let's say somebody pinches your hand, your body or your brain immediately knows that somebody has pinched your hand, that without any delay. Similarly, you would like to get notified if there is a breakdown, and you want to get notified immediately, and not just notified. Like your body, let's say somebody pinches your hand, you also react to it, and then there's a complete process. You like take a step back, you do something, and then you react to it. So you want your system also to react to it. Like, let's say some notification has come up, then that should start a complete process, that somebody is acknowledging that problem, somebody is going that, somebody is fixing those issues, taking some time, talking to some people, getting it verified, and restarting everything. So that's what a nervous system does, and that's what we intend to do. That's what we intend to build in any manufacturing system. So that's what we are trying to develop. All right. So this is, in nutshell, what we're trying to say is that it's time to activate and link all those siloed systems with a nervous system so that they are connected and they can deliver that value. Yeah. So next. All right. So this is how we are doing it. So it's a small, introduction about DFOS. So we are okay, you must have got if you have started some of your digital journey, you must know, you should be knowing that creating only just one application, let's say you have digitized some of your processes by building some of the application, how tedious it becomes. But with DFOS, this entire 1,000 days transformation journey becomes a 15 days sprint, and that's what we intend to do. So with DFOS, this transformational journey becomes so fast that uh, it doesn't becomes a nervous system unless you connect all the systems. If you, let's say, if you digitize one more process, that process again becomes a silo, what Sanjeev was mentioning. So you have to do all of it, and that's where DFOS comes really handy, where you can create multiple processes. These are customizable as per your needs, and you can if you really look at it, you can design your entire processes out of it, do it involve all the people, and this also brings in a lot of digital culture in your factories. So
okay,
yeah,
Nishant, I think
yes,
that was a nice, short, sweet plug-in.
yeah,
So I can definitely tell you that based on my experience and conversations with several people, still very much part of manufacturing, this particular DFOS system is really worked extremely well, extremely efficiently. So I'm just an independent sort of view on this. And the reason I have that is that if you go to the website of designx.in, you realize that the customer profile that they have there covers more than 200 factories in Asia. And these 200 factories are producing more than $8 billion worth of goods. So I'll just leave it at that. It's something worth looking at for those who wish to move and look at this journey further. There's a time for a poll 3. So what's this poll about?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the poll 3 question. You guys can vote.
Okay. Tough one, not easy. I wish there was an option which said all of the above. But at least this makes people, choose.
yeah.
When you say all of the above, then the brain is not sufficiently exercised.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna close the poll in next 5 seconds. Okay. Still getting the answers. Okay, closing the poll now.
My God, 50% at production efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, quality control 30%. Not many people bother about maintenance that much. That means maintenance has really improved a lot, or there are not enough representatives from that space in today's participants. Difficult to say. Asset management 17%, well above maintenance, is a surprise for me, I have to say, which means that there are a lot of business people out here who are looking at it. Otherwise, I rarely hear of factories talking about asset management. Right. Okay. This is something for us to take home and for everyone else to know. Right. Okay. Time for Q&A.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions there in the chat box. If you guys are interested, you can still drop in the questions. So I think Pablo has asked, what safety and efficiency improvements can Gen AI bring to mining, especially in highly seismic countries such as Chile? Then
Yeah. What are the others? We'll try and see if we can club some of them.
yeah. So there's the second question by Rajat. Sir, can Gen AI do root cause analysis and can do forecasting of sales, forecasting of demand, etc.? And then I think Payal wanted to repeat the point about Gen AI on Celos. I think what can't be done with Gen AI on Celos. So we have these three questions for now.
Okay, fine. I'll take up the first one about seismic activity and so on in Chile for Pablo. Pablo, seismic activity and the safety linked to seismic activities is really such a wide subject. And in some parts of the world, an extremely well-studied subject. The reason I speak about it is because for 13 years, I lived on what is known as the North Anatolian fault line, which means that we could have huge seismic activity and lives were at risk at any point in time. I lived in Istanbul for 13 years. I was running a bank, an investment bank there in those days. And the fact is that just 5 months before I moved to Istanbul in early 2000, there had been a huge earthquake in a nearby place, which was barely 100 kilometers from Istanbul, a place called Izmit. And 30,000 people had died. So I speak with that kind of a perspective and background. And as far as seismic activity is concerned, I believe that given the power of computing and the availability of data, it is possible to improve, not eliminate, improve on the safety conditions in most places. And I would imagine that mining is not an exception, but it needs to be worked upon quite seriously. I don't know if it answers your question, but that's my answer.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another one good question. Can this be implemented in small operations? When I say, I mean real small scale.
Oh, that's a beauty. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the beauty about the combining of Gen AI with something like DFOS, I would say. Because it is not about whether Gen AI can be implemented in small places. Gen AI can be implemented anywhere. You can implement it theoretically even in your home. But the real thing is whether you have the tools to be able to do it together in a good way. And that's where something like DFOS comes in, which is at a very small way, it can be done. But let Nishant talk about it. I'm sorry, Nishant, I took it up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, like you rightly said, Sanjeev, that I mean, it can really be, installed in this, and when I talk about the small operations, they also need that kind of discipline that large operations need. The discipline quotient stays the same everywhere. So if you really want to run your operations safely, or maybe you want to maintain because you also have to maintain the quality of no matter how small the operation is, and probably you might be supplying to some of your customer as a B2B, or you might be supplying to some B2C. But in any case, you have to maintain the quality of whatever you are producing, product by product, every product. So you'll have to incorporate those QA check sheets, those safety check sheets, and all you can incorporate. And once you do that, I will take just one more line here. that once you start doing that, you will start to, you will start to create that history that will be, utilized in generating that wisdom that will eventually become your Gen AI. So, that entire thing you can do. Yeah.
We have one more question. Why do firms are hesitant to adapt the Gen AI as security challenge?
Why are firms, sorry, say that again, hesitating to?
Adapt the Gen AI as a security challenge.
Gen AI, sorry, I need to get that again. So why are firms hesitating to adapt Gen AI because Gen AI is a security challenge, or
Yeah.
what's the question?
I think that's the why do Gen AI as a security challenge.
Oh, okay. Well, let me answer that very simply, and Nishant, feel free to add to it.
Yeah.
Every new technology starts slowly because definitely the risks are not fully understood in the beginning. It takes time. People experiment with it and then they roll it out. But the beauty about Gen AI is that there are parts in the world, like China, like companies in China and in other places as well, not just China. I gave you an example from China, but in other countries as well. It's happening selectively. There are people who have really made a lot of headway. And Gen AI makes it possible to make these headways faster than was the case earlier. So yes, there will be a phase where people will be risk averse, and then it'll latch on. Then the advantages will be, so much more, will be so much larger than the risks which would have gotten smaller. But Nishant, feel free to add, please.
Yeah, I mean, right, as rightly, pointed out by Sanjeev, that there is a gestation period. Of course, every new technology, even when we started with trains, they were really fast and people were scared to, to ride on those. Starting from there, and then we have covered a lot of ground in terms of cloud computing. A lot of data has gone to cloud. So things like that happened. So the hesitation is, I won't say hesitation is because of the security or safety only. It's a general hesitation towards adopting a new tech. That's one bit of it. Second is, just to, to address that, how what we are doing in terms of safety security. So in the architecture also, we have taken those internationally, established measures for securing data, for securing context. That's one. Also, when we, take the data to LLMs to further train it to Gen AI level, there's a general risk that uh, there are certain parameters that has to be covered, and we have already covered the entire thing into our architecture. So that's the way we are taking it up. Yes.
Let me just add one little example for this. The biggest issue in this really often is that the senior management, the decision makers, are not comfortable with this because they haven't learned enough about this new technology. And I'll give you a stark example. In the south of India, while working with a large MNC, we used to use a lot of hydrogen. And this hydrogen was always generated on site through electrolysis. However, we found that hydrogen was a byproduct of a facility about 300 kilometers away that was producing caustic soda. And that hydrogen was available at a fraction of the cost at which we used to generate it ourselves. All we had to do was bottle it up and ship it in trucks from that facility to ours. The first time I suggested it, the entire top management was up in arms. They say, "Oh my God, what will happen? This hydrogen, it'll explode, chaos, we'll be liable," and so on and so forth. Nobody had done their homework except my team. We said, "Guys, just relax. Hydrogen is the only gas that exhibits the inverse Joule-Thomson effect, which means that even if there is a leak in the high pressure bottle carrying the hydrogen, the flame will not go outside. It will immediately, it's a reverse Joule-Thomson effect. So nothing can explode outside." And then it went through the safety audit, through the safety engineer, and of course, everybody understood it immediately. I mean, this is basic scientific principles. But top management will not know it. So I am putting it to you guys, the participants, that you need to be carrying the torch for this and be learning about it, become more knowledgeable, become experts enough to convince your management and the other decision makers and influencers.
I think we'll go with just one last question, I think, because Rajat again repeated it. He
Okay.
wants an answer for Gen AI can Gen AI do forecasting of sales, forecasting of demand, etc.?
Nishant, do you want to take it? Otherwise, I'll take it.
No, you take it. Yeah. I mean, you can, yes.
Okay. So, Rajat, the answer to your question is a yes and no. This is like The Economist on one hand, but on the other hand. The thing is that today there is so much information at a micro segmental level across tiniest of geographies and tiniest of markets that if you can put the data together, this Gen AI can look at all kinds of factors, seasonality, trends, changes, past practices, and be able to predict, not with 100% confidence, but with a high level of confidence, forecast. I know how we used to get, the forecasting used to happen at our places. In fact, I'm putting it lightly, but I even think it was true. The sales guy would come and say, Ki humko, we want these sort of packs in those orders. And the factory would struggle to create that combination. And after like 1, 2, 3 weeks of struggling, we would finally get it right. The moment we got it right, the sales guy would come and create another combination. And then we would go back into a spin. So basically what I'm saying is that in the past, a lot of the sales planning and forecasting was really done with agendas which may have been a little bit different. But today, all of that is history. And the answer to your question is yes, to a large extent, with a high level of confidence, it is possible, given enough data.
I think so. We are done with all the questions, answers for now.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Thank you so much, Nishant, for taking it all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you guys who are there. I don't know how many joined and how many are still there, but thank you, all of you. And may you have a great evening ahead of you and a great day ahead of you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vartha. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you, everybody in the team. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.